as you said, you're afraid of the federative system. Um, how can you combat that in Europe?
To choose right-wing parties in every country in Europe.
Being gay is something you can choose, and being Catholic, being conservative is something you can.
It's either us or Brussels, or whoever demons that we have to fight.
Nekünk meg kell teremteni Európa jövőjét.
I'm not okay with her and I don't agree with her, but I think she is really strong.
Nationalism. What is it really? For many, it's a sign of togetherness, common ground, patriotism and identity. For others, it's a tool of political manipulation and polarization. After a year plagued by the Russo-Ukrainian war, elections in many of the biggest nations like France, Germany and Hungary, a global pandemic, and an increase in nationalistic tendencies in nearly all European countries, I wanted to find out what the younger generations were thinking about the future of the continent. Therefore, we will not talk to politicians already in power, but to people who are roughly my age, the people that will be running the Europe of tomorrow. So in the next weeks, me and my cameraman Julian are going on a journey through Europe. We want to try and find out whether the concept of European integration is a dream, threatened by modern nationalism. Our first stop in this journey of Europe is Poland. In the recent years, the Law and Justice Party has pushed policies infringing on the LGBTQ+ community, restricted abortion laws, and the importance of the Catholic Church only appear to become bigger. How do the young Poles feel about the rise of religion's involvement in state affairs and social policies? And why do some younger people go against the trend of atheism and secularism here in Europe? With us in Poland is our dear friend, assistant producer and tour guide Julia, that's been kind enough to let us stay at her place in the outskirts of Warsaw, drive us around town, and help us get in touch with the right people.
Waiting for the representative of the Polish youth to contact us. He's not answering the phone calls, and we're kind of worried that he's not going to show. So it's not the crisis yet. Our good friend Julia is talking to some guys now that looked like him. Now she's calling him again, I think. For the 5th time in 3 minutes.
What is Poland for you?
For me, Poland is not only a piece of land or a place on the map. It's my fatherland with its own history and culture. We live in time of globalization. Like globalists want us to be same like people from different places on the world. Christianity, it's really important because again it's a big part of European identity, and European Union was built on this identity. But now I feel like they want to cut off this Christian part and make it like leftist heaven, right? I feel like they lost their common sense somewhere. Yeah.
Poland has been making headlines in the recent years for its increasingly conservative stance on LGBTQ+ rights. In 2019, over 100 Polish towns and regions declared themselves LGBTQ+ free zones, effectively banning any promotion of the community's ideology and rights. This move was met with international condemnation and sparked protest from the LGBTQ plus community in Poland.
Musimy mówić stop tęczowej degeneracji! Stop tęczowej degeneracji! Stop tęczowej degeneracji! Stop tęczowej degeneracji! Jak widać, oczywiście mają wsparcie wszystkich środowisk lewicowych, lewicowo-liberalnych. Są tam te brudasy z Antify, są tam dewianci z podtęczowej flagi. I gwarantuję wam, że za każdym razem, kiedy ci dewianci będą profanowali kolejny pomnik, my tą flagę zdejmiemy, a następnie zrobimy to, co do nas należy, czyli wrzucimy ją do śmieci, tam gdzie jest jej miejsce.
About LGBTQ free zones, abortion, stuff like that.
About LGBT free zones, it was made by leftist journalists, and it spread in the world. That was fake. It was fake. Like LGBT people are. They are obviously not. No one is killing like those people on the streets. Like they are living peacefully. If my best friend would say something like "I am gay," I will accept that because he's my friend. But I wouldn't like. I wouldn't like him to adopt like child.
Why wouldn't you want him to adopt a child?
Because it's against my my view. It's like I believe kids should have female and male role models. It's enough for kids to see some bad things on Netflix. They don't need to be a part of it in real life, in my opinion.
Can you just clap once so we can synchronize? Perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Why did you join this organization? What was the reason why you wanted to join the organization?
Because I guess that it's pretty useful to spread more awareness about the queerness and all the queer issues, especially here in a country like Poland, which is like pretty much developed, but there are still some issues to be improved. Yeah. The situation for LGBTQ plus community in Poland, I guess in everyday lives we can just go on and live our lives, and it's nothing clear or spectacular. But then if we want to show it in any way, like for example, hang out a rainbow flag in on our balcony, or even the more like serious things like marry each other or adopt a kid, then we meet some obstacles, either legal obstacles like with marrying and adopting a child, or just social ones with not being accepted. There was this case, like I guess about 2 years ago or something like this, I don't remember exactly, where someone hung a rainbow flag on their balcony. I guess it was even in Warsaw. Threw fireworks in it, and the fireworks didn't reach the exact apartment. They reached I guess the apartment underneath, and it was like burned the whole. So the cases like this, like situations like this, still happen. I haven't heard of a lot of this, but sometimes still they do, sadly. Yeah, definitely Catholic Church and LGBT community like don't really share many values. Maybe Catholic Church declares themselves to value love highly, but from what we see, not really. But because you can love, but just under certain conditions, and it's like they are kind of hypocrites to me because they want us to love, but also don't want us to love if it's not under certain conditions. So. And yeah, of course, like it does affect our everyday lives in the sense of like, for example, disapproving looks or words from the elderly people mostly, I guess. These are the most, but also sometimes in indoctrination to younger people. Like, it was not elderly people who threw these fireworks. It was young. It was some young guy or person. I don't know. It was some young person. So, like. Yeah.
As we were reflecting on the interviews we had already done and preparing for the next leg of our journey, we decided to have a quick chat with our friend Julia. Maybe she could help us put together the pieces of this very complicated puzzle that was Poland in 2023.
How do you see the future of Poland?
Brilliant. Yes, I think now it exists a huge difference between old people and young people, but we have to wait a little bit, like old people be let out of this, and after that it will be a new wave in Poland, I think, and I believe in that. They are open to, okay, we have different meanings and different views, but they can talk about this, but old people know. They are really stubborn, yes, with different attitudes. Yes, for example, Szymon, he's really patriotic person, but still, it's not the same attitude. For example, it exists in beliefs old people. That's why it's a huge difference. Okay, we are different. I have different view of things, yes, but it's still different, like a more calmer, you know? Okay, like you can be gay, but I don't accept like you can adopt children. Yes, but some like older people, no. Like gay, it's like the worst enemy, or it's weird. It's weird. But still, I think it will be better. It is better, yes. But you know, old people, it's our problem now, I think. Yes.
Okay. Our stay in Poland was coming to an end, and me and Julian had a long train journey ahead of us. When we were saying our last goodbyes to Julia at the train station in Warsaw, we deeply regretted having gone out for a last taste of soplitsas and vodkas the day before. But our journey had just started. Pretty well set in my ways. Don't fall for the latest crazy scam. So, what had I really learned from my trip to Poland? It seems to me that the one thing the Polish people I spoke with could agree on is that you have to actively take part for change to happen. That change takes time, especially when the changes that are necessary are things that concerns personal values, moral, and acceptance. Were the older generations so scarred by history that the only way to evolve as a nation was through generational change? And if so, could the Poles come together, despite their different opinions? The nationalists focus on religion as an integral part of the country's identity, but did it come on expense of human rights of the LGBTQ community and female reproductive policies? Or like Michalina said, there was room for love, but only under certain conditions. What were these nationalists so afraid of? On the other side, I could see why keeping traditions alive were important, and since the communist era was not that long ago, I could understand the need to develop, create and maintain this sense of national belonging. But was it really necessary to exclude people based on the color of their skin or their sexual preference in order to do so? Another country with a Soviet past and a recent uptick in nationalism is Hungary. Under the governing Fidesz party and its leader Viktor Orban, the country has experienced a significant shift towards conservatism and nationalism. Orban's political ideologies have been met with fierce criticism from the EU and human rights groups, accusing him of undermining democracy, press freedom, and migrant rights. Orban's supporters, however, see him as a strong leader who is standing up for Hungary's national interests and values.
The political landscape of Hungary was dramatically changed in 2010 when Orban came to power. He then had a supermajority, which practically meant that he can change any law. So for the 2014 election, they created a totally new election law, which basically helped him to another supermajority. 14, some leftist parties tried an alliance, but there were still other smaller parties that run. So what came out of it? A supermajority. 2018, they tried to favor each other. The smaller parties started to favor each other in the constituencies. Didn't work. Again, a supermajority. And the last year in the elections, it seemed to be that maybe it would be something that could work when they had a pre-election. Actually, the opposition voters elected a prime minister candidate for themselves, and all the leftist and also a former far-right party and Green Party formed an alliance, a big alliance against the big Fidesz. And it failed again. It was again a supermajority. So basically they tried everything and nothing worked.
So it was Fidesz versus the rest. Some would claim Orban's grip on the country was a soft autocracy, and critics have labeled him authoritarian and as a threat to modern democracy. However, the Fidesz party with Orban as their leader were winning election after election. Why were the people of Hungary voting for him? Was he playing on something more than political promises? Was he reaching something in the Hungarians that other politicians just didn't? And what about the younger generations? Were they buying into his politics?
I don't think that in general Hungarians trust their politicians. Not even Fidesz voters, or a very big part of the Fidesz voters, if you talk to them on the countryside, for example, they don't really think that politicians can be trusted. Anyway, they don't even know about the opposition parties because they don't have that reach. If you talk to staunch opposition voters who really hate Fidesz and really hate Orban, and if you ask them if they trust any of the opposition politicians, they most likely they will say that yeah, not really. I don't really like them, but still they are at least not Orban. I think polarization mostly is happening in the older generations, but I don't think that the younger generation is totally not touched by that. I think it's more like a hope from myself, and what I see that younger people usually care less about this. They usually are not in this identity games, because these are all identity questions that Fidesz is working with in this in its propaganda campaigns against LGBTQ people, against immigrants, against liberals, against Brussels, whatever enemy they are choosing for the day. And I think that the younger generation usually cares less about this, but younger generation usually cares less about politics too.
But did younger people really care less about politics? Something that had become apparent to me after my visit to Poland was that the nationalistic movements in Europe were not acting independently. As with any other ideological conviction, these guys had contacts and worked together across borders on developing ideas, thoughts, and policies. We had to thank Szymon for our next meeting. Through his alliances with other nationalists in Europe, we got in touch with Csaba Binder, the leader of Mi Hiszünk Ifjai, or Our Homeland Party's youth wing. This party, as with the old Polish youth, fronted strong far-right rhetoric, urging for a more Christian, Western, and traditional society. With Fidesz already being characterized as far-right, Mia Sank was even further on the right wing of Hungarian politics. What did they think about Europe and the future of their nation?
You can say it again now because camera. Okay. What is the main pillars of Mia Sank?
Legfontosabb az, hogy nemzetbe gondolkodunk. Ez egy értékválasztás. Szerintem a 21. században vannak, akik nemzetbe gondolkodnak, és vannak, akik nemzetközileg gondolkodnak. Vannak, akik számára a nemzet, mint érték nem egy integráló fogalom. Számunkra az, és ez a mi hazánknál egy nagyon erős karakter. Nagyon fontos, hogy viszont soviniszták sem vagyunk. Nagyon fontos, hogy amellett, hogy nemzetbe gondolkodunk, amellett ez a nemzeti érzület, ez arra is sarkal minket, hogy Európa különböző nemzeteivel szövetségeket kössünk, hiszen van egy európai identitásunk is, és az európai identitás ez arra ösztönöz minket, hogy például a lengyelekkel, az összlengyel ifjúsággal, vagy más országból hasonló értékrendű szervezetekkel egy kölcsönös tiszteleten alapuló szövetségi rendszert alakítsunk ki. Mi ezt a mi hazánkban Európa, vagy mi ezt a mi hazánkban északi civilizációnak nevezzük, ez is egy olyan értékrendi sajátosság, ami jellemez minket.
This northern civilization. What does that mean? Mi ez az északi civilizáció?
Ez egy kulturális és földrajzi bázist fed le. Nyilvánvalóan az európai és a keresztény civilizációt értjük ez alatt. Torockai László, a Mi Hazánk mozgalomnak az elnöke adta tulajdonképpen ezt az elnevezést, és tőle származik ez a megnevezés. És hát nagyjából, hogyha ezt úgy lehet megfogalmazni, hogyha rátekintünk a glóbuszra, rátekintünk a földbolygóra, akkor nyilvánvalóan a Földnek az északi részét értjük az északi civilizáció alatt. Leegyszerűsítve lehet fehér embernek is nevezni akár.
After having been in Hungary for a couple of days, it struck me that this country was indeed a very homogeneous country. Sources spike, but nearly 83 to 93% of its inhabitants were in fact ethnic Hungarians. During the 2015 refugee crisis, the country also met heavy criticism from the European Union for strong anti-migration laws and their treatment of migrants. The far right strongly opposed immigration, but why? Did multiculturalism pose a threat to them?
De összességében a multikulturalizmus globális szinten szerintem egy rendkívül, egy olyan termék, ami szerintem működésképtelen, és ezt egyébként a gyakorlatban látjuk, hogy ha teljesen eltérő kultúrákat világszerte összekeverünk, abból pozitív végkimenet nem tud alakulni. A multikulturalizmus az egyébként rengeteg halálesethez már járult hozzá, akár hogyha abba gondolunk bele, hogy Nyugat-Európában mennyi terrorcselekmény történt az elmúlt még kevesebb, mint egy évtizedben. Úgyhogy a multikulturalizmus az világszinten működésképtelen.
Ikwa, do you think that the reason why there are terrorist attacks in Western Europe is that because of multiculturalism?
Én azt gondolom, hogy igen, és nagyon fontos azt kiemelni, hogy itt nem csak konkrétan terrorcselekedetekről van szó, hanem egyszerűen azt kéne megérteni, és erről ugye beszéltem már azért, mert amit ki is fejtettem, hogy a multikulturalizmus működésképtelen. Összekeverni szerintem pont az ember a kirekesztő, meg pont az ember a rasszista, aki nem tiszteli azt, hogy mindenhol különböző kultúrák vannak. Hogyha én szeretnék betekintést nyerni az afrikai kultúrába, vagy egy afrikai országnak a kultúrájába, akkor elmegyek Afrikába, és ott meg tudom nézni. Nem kell ahhoz idehozni azt a kultúrát, hanem pont ez a szépsége a világnak, hogy egyszerűen sokszínű, de a sokszínűséget nem szabad összekeverni, mert akkor nem lesz sokszínű. Akkor egy ilyen massza lesz. Az én számomra Európa jövője az nagyon egyszerűen leírható, mert pont az egyszerűsége, ami kicsit bonyolultá is teszi, hogy teljesen más, gyökeresen más, mint ami most van. Ugye most Európa egy demográfiailag fogyatkozó, gazdaságilag nem önálló, sokszor Amerikának kiszolgáltatott, és az Európai Unió által pedig egy politikai szövetség. Az én szememben Európának egy demográfiailag erősödő, gazdaságinak egyébként önálló és erős És egy olyan erős, legalább olyan erősnek kéne lennie, hogy Amerikával és Kínával is fel tudja venni a versenyt. Valamint, ami még nagyon fontos, hogy nekünk, európai országoknak pedig közös együttműködésre abszolút szükség van, egész Európának együtt kell működnie, de ennek az együttműködésnek nem szabad politikai diktátumokban kimerülnie, hanem nekünk egymás belső működését tiszteletbe tartva gazdaságilag kell együttműködnünk. Én így tervezem, és mindenképpen ami nagyon fontos, hogy egy erősödő Európát szeretnék látni. Én azt szeretném látni, hogyha Európáról nem mint egy vén öregedő társadalom, vagy egy vén öregedő társadalomról beszélnénk, hanem mint egy olyan fiatalodó, életerős kontinensről, aminek van jövője láthatóan. Nekünk meg kell teremteni Európa jövőjét.
The attitudes that Binder demonstrated were not surprising. I knew beforehand that our homeland movement were against the EU, but I was astonished when he spoke about the Nordic civilization. How would this be any better than the current European Union? And what did it really mean? The thoughts, ideas, and rhetorics were similar to the nationalism I'd seen in Poland, but it seemed like the nationalism in Hungary was more direct, accepted, and that Orban's grip on the country, the situation of the media, corruption, and distrust in the institutions was creating a situation where people saw the need to flee to the far right for their problems to be heard.
For the past couple of days, we've been in Eastern Europe, or what historically is Eastern Europe. But the rise of nationalism is something that is happening everywhere in Europe, not only in the eastern part. So we're gonna go to Italy and speak to some young Italians to hear what they have to say about their new prime minister, Giorgia Meloni, which is the most far-right politician they've had since Mussolini, and find out what they think about this growing polarization and nationalism that you can find there as well.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Federica.
Personality of Giorgia Meloni is what won the elections and not the ideas behind her, or is
No,
it?
no.
Yes.
Questo è solo un pregiudizio che destra is like fascism. No, absolutely no. Lei appunto è di destra, ma la destra in Italia cerca semplicemente di dare forza agli italiani, non di dare discriminazioni o comunque difficoltà o svantaggi agli stranieri. No, non è questo, invece cerca di dare una concretezza, una stabilità alle famiglie italiane che giustamente sono nate in Italia e hanno sicuramente dei privilegi ma dei diritti rispetto a gente che arriva dopo e che quindi li può acquistare, ma precedenza agli italiani, poi anche alle altre persone. Però questo è quello che è il pensiero della destra, non contrariamente a quello che invece danno l'idea quelli di sinistra, che pensano invece che appunto sia solo una cosa radicale, conservatrice, tutta una cosa che riprende Mussolini. No.
I'm not okay with a lot of things about the right part, because they think that the left part give priority to the extra communitary part, like the Italian doesn't count nothing, but this is not true. It's like equal, like they want to include people from abroad and minorities, and I don't like the concept in Georgia, like no abortion, no gay rights. And for me, for my family, and for my friends is like are really important things, and for that I cannot be I cannot be in agree with Federica and with Georgia, but despite of that, I think that Georgia is a strong woman. Like despite of that, I'm not okay with her, and I don't agree with her in many political for many political reasons. But I think she is really strong, and now she went to Ukraine to talk with Zelensky, and this is a really cool thing, because Berlusconi he would never do that.
In realtà, anche se Giorgio Meloni su questo punto fate contro questa comunità LGBTQ e tutto, in realtà chi vota Meloni non per forza appunto è, diciamo, in agree con tutte le sue idee. Appunto a me e alla mia famiglia a questo punto, per esempio, c'è del tutto indifferente, cioè a me che ci siano persone che hanno la propria famiglia e la sviluppino nel miglior modo che credano possibile, su tante altre cose io sono d'accordo, e quindi mi sento più sicura ad appoggiarmi a questa persona piuttosto che a loro che non mi danno quella sicurezza, ecco. Però non sono d'accordo con cioè non con tutti i punti di Giorgia Meloni sono d'accordo. Questo in esempio proprio sono molto in disaccordo.
After having traveled through Europe, one thing I was happy about was the fact that the younger generations still cared. They still had a voice and wanted it to be heard. Even though some of the thoughts and ideas that the old Polish youth in our homeland had were extremely far to the right, they were not skinheads with swastika tattoos. They were well-dressed, articulated young people with a passion for change and their nations. It still seemed to me that they wanted a future based on cooperation between the European nations, but they did not trust the EU and its apparently leftist and woke agenda to do so. On the other side, it was baffling that they possessed so much discontent for minorities, whether that was non-ethnic Hungarians, foreigners in Italy, or members of the LGBTQ+ community in Poland. Maybe they were afraid of becoming a minority themselves. Or were the minorities used as tools to hide other things that were wrong in their society, like corruption, unemployment, education, or other policies that affected them? On the other side, it was refreshing to see that, for instance, in Italy, two girls from two very different viewpoints could still be friends and talk about political topics without ending up as bitter enemies. It gave me hope that the future of Europe was still in good hands.